yesterday we went to Charlotte Mecklenburg Animal Care and Control in North Carolina. It was an awesome shelter. It was a really good experience.
It was an amazing shelter, like huge shelter.
Yeah, 11,000 animals in 2025.
And they have some satellite buildings and stuff like that too, so.
Yeah, well that was what we were going to talk about a little bit. Like, so 11,000 animals that come in, and they are technically open intake, but they're really managed intake in that they schedule, everyone has to make an appointment to own or surrender, and they are put on a wait list, and their current wait list has like 300 animals on it or close to. So it could be months before they get in, and I think, you know, they didn't really dig into it a lot. I'm sure it's a sensitive topic. It is for everybody.
Sure.
But they're conscious of it, I think, because one of the things they mentioned is that they're going to be building another adoption center.
Right.
So I'm going to guess that that's to address that issue.
Yeah, because if they can move what they've got a little faster, then they have room to take more from the community.
Yeah, when I said it's the biggest challenge, it's space for dogs.
Right.
So they have 200 kennels. So they have about that. And that's not counting like the little kennels, I don't think. The little ranks, I'm not sure.
The ones on wheels, maybe.
But that's a lot of dogs. They also have an enormous foster program. They have about 500 active foster families. So a lot of dogs in foster care, and cats, I'm sure, which is awesome, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
But that backlog of dogs that need to come in is tricky. And we actually had a chance to talk with one of their animal control officers. They have 32. They need more. They have slots, I think, for 38. But like everybody, it's hard to find good animal control officers. And they just lost one yesterday who'd only been on the job 3 days.
Yeah, it's a tough job.
It is a tough job. But we were asking him about the whole fact that that people have to make an appointment, and it didn't used to be that way. He's been there, what did he say, 20?
A long time.
7 years? No,
Yeah,
I don't know.
over 20 years.
Over 20 years. So he has seen the place go from what amounted to a dog pound, I guess, because it was a 30% live release rate, a 72-hour hold in North Carolina. We're in South Carolina now. So a lot of animals didn't make it alive, and now they're a phenomenal shelter with a really high. I hate hitting the numbers. I feel like it doesn't really tell the story ever, but they wouldn't be technically termed no kill according to some entities in this country, but I would say they're doing a phenomenal job saving pretty much every animal they can.
Yeah.
And but that said, it's not the number that everybody seems to be fixated on. Okay, so the animal control officer. So this animal control officer has been there long enough to see that change, and he said it used to be, as he said, we provided chauffeur service. People would call, we'd go get their animal, bring it in, no questions asked. Now they have to make an appointment, and they may have to wait months.
And they have to bring their own animal in.
Yeah. And he said that has been successful to his mind because it's forcing people to recognize this is their problem. And he said some people figure it out. They come up with their own solution. The other thing is the shelter does a lot to help people retain their pets. So if the challenge is food or medical help or whatever, they're willing to help them. They have a fund. They have like a $40,000 fund that people donate to that is specifically for helping people keep their pets and giving them what they need. They have, oh my gosh, spay neuter in that county. Residents can get their animals spayed or neutered for $25.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And if they're really in need, they can get it done for free.
Exactly, $25, and they're doing spay neuter surgeries 4 days a week. The day we were there, they did 35 surgeries, so 4 times that.
Amazing.
And it's remarkable. So they're doing so much right. But that said, they have a big backlog of animals waiting to be brought into the shelter through owner surrender. I did push a little bit and ask, well, what do you think happens to the animals that people are not willing to wait? And admittedly, they end up coming in as strays often, and that's the story everywhere.
Yeah.
And the problem with that. And I'm really encouraged by the fact that Charlotte's trying to open another adoption center and try to reduce that number. The problem with that is the dogs that are abandoned, left as stray, they're multiplying. So they are exasperating the problem. So they multiply very quickly, and 80% of animals coming into any shelter are not spayed or neutered. So do the math. It's much smarter to find a way to bring those animals in if there's no way to convince the family to hang on to them. So one of the really important changes that happened, and it happened just recently, happened in July, and it's definitely having a big impact on that shelter and their ability to save more animals, is that they had been under the sheriff's department, and that's pretty common in a lot of the South, but they were moved from being under the sheriff's department to being under general services. And the difference that makes is that, for instance, Haley, who we met with, who her title is, I think, Development and Donor Relations, she is their grant writer, and previously when they were under the sheriff's department, she would try to apply for a grant, but there were multiple levels that had to be signed off on by people who were not animal specialists, and by the time all of that happened, she would usually miss her grant deadlines. It just couldn't happen fast enough because of all the red tape. And now she can, because they're under general services, they're their own department, they can just simply, there's just like one person to sign off, I'm assuming their executive director.
There's just a whole lot less red tape to go through.
Yeah, so they can make changes faster, they can just be way more effective in addressing the public's need.
It gets volunteers in there without having to do the both background check and
fingerprinting and all that. It used to be very difficult and time consuming for staff, for the volunteers to be able to bring anybody in to volunteer. They had to be fingerprinted, all of that. And so that discouraged a lot of people from doing it, and it just made it physically difficult for the staff to onboard very many volunteers. And since they've done that, I think they said they went from 300 to 600. They have 600 active volunteers because they can do it so much quicker. It's a simple application and probably an interview with the staff, and then another volunteer trains them. And so they have like double their capacity for volunteers because they are no longer under the sheriff's department. So those are just two things. I know there's a bazillion other ones probably having to do with budgeting. They're still adjusting. They had to kind of reassign and reorganize, but now they're doing it very smartly. They're doing the things that make sense for an animal shelter to operate as a true resource for their community because they are not a function of the police department.
Right, it does make sense. Like that staycation program.
Yeah,
where it was awesome. Like if you're not ready to adopt and you can't commit to fostering, you can come and take a dog for like 10 days.
Yeah, the staycation is 10 days, which is kind of cool because you're not committing to indefinitely. I foster, and every time I consider whether to take in a foster animal from the shelter where I help and the rescue that I help, I have to think, how likely is it this dog's going to get adopted, and what's coming up in my own life as to whether or not I can take that dog in. Whereas, gosh, a staycation, 10 days, I can look at my calendar and go, hey, I have 10 days, I can take a dog for 10 days. And if nothing else, it gets the dog out of the shelter, and as part of that, whoever is hosting this dog for a staycation, they fill out notes, like a whole little report about their time with them, and that gives the shelter information on that dog to help get them matched better for an adoption. So,
and I think they said like 50% of those end up being adopted by the person who takes them for the staycation. So it's a great way to try out a dog.
Yeah, it's a no pressure kind of thing. They also have daycations. You can take them just for the day.
Yeah, I love that.
So yeah, so many smart things.
Yeah, community.
Yeah, I kept asking that question of everybody, like, how did you go from in 2007 killing 70% of the animals that came in to now being this incredibly progressive, forward-thinking, community-engaged shelter? And one person said Charlotte is like a melting pot because so many of the people are not from around there. They've come from all over, so they all come in with different viewpoints and different biases and different habits. And so many have said, it's not acceptable to leave your animal outside all the time. And that's the challenge in much of the South, where we're headed to deeper South now. And in much of the deeper South, animals are disposable to a certain extent. I mean, they're outside, and it's not like these people don't care. They do love their animals. Sure. It's just that they have been raised with a different mindset about caring for animals. And so anyway, so Charlotte's really a shining example of what a shelter could be. I was just really taken by so many of the programs, but one of the things also that brought this turnaround, this one's really key, and I stress it every time I get an opportunity to speak, and I stress it with any shelter that wants to hear the message. Transparency is so important, and that's what happened. So Melissa, who is their outreach and communications manager, she came from a TV background. She's been there 19 years, I believe.
Yeah.
And when she first came in, things, this was back in the day when they were not, 70% of the animals weren't getting out alive. She immediately started engaging with the media on every level and inviting them into the shelter. And that was a change, a big change, letting them see what the challenge is, what's happening, what the situation is. And that has led to building trust with your public. And that's the catch-22 on all this. So many shelters are afraid to tell the public what's happening, how many animals are being euthanized, how many are being brought in, how many are being turned away. They're afraid to share that information because they feel like they're going to be the bad guys.
Right, and even a really hard story, like when, of course, the media is always interested in, like, if it's a horrific story, they want to talk to the shelter about what their role in that was. They don't shy away from that because it's an opportunity to educate your community and let them know exactly what you're doing and how you view animals and how you view the public's role.
Yeah, so transparency has been really, really key. Melissa is out like twice a week, meeting with media, getting on their platforms, on their programs, just putting the shelter out there in front of the public again and again. When they get too full or when they have a situation, they're upfront and honest about what's happening. They welcome the conversation, and that is what has to change for so many shelters, and it's scary. So they're afraid to trust the public with the truth.
Right, because at first you probably will get a lot of people horrified by, we're killing this many dogs and that's who's going to pay attention. But you start that conversation there and you invite them to be a part of the solutions.
Yeah, if you can't trust them with the truth of what's going on, you can't fix your problem. And so it's a hurdle you have to jump.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of their really cool, unique programs that they do. Right. So the shelter serves their public by going out and offering vaccines. And here's the thing about North Carolina that I love. North Carolina is the only state, as far as I know, that certifies people to be rabies administrators. So they can give rabies shots. You don't have to go to a veterinarian for a rabies shot. And as far as I know, that's the only state where they'll certify people to do that. So all of the animal control officers, and I'm sure some of the staff, are certified to give rabies vaccinations. So when they are out on calls, and they get almost 28,000 calls a year, so a lot of calls. When they are out on calls, they can give a rabies vaccination right there. And as far as I can tell, they do this for free. They target areas where they go door to door and offer a rabies vaccine. That is pretty incredible.
Yeah,
they also once a month have a free rabies vaccine clinic, one Saturday a month. So there's no reason why every dog in Charlotte, Mecklenburg area is not vaccinated for rabies.
Right.
And they also have mega clinics twice a year where they do not just rabies, but like the whole panel of vaccines, the regular core vaccines, and free microchipping.
That's awesome.
For probably between 700 and 800 people, I think she said. And they're looking for a larger place, and they're only limited by how many cars they can bring in. And right now they're doing it at some kind of fairgrounds, I believe.
Yeah, and they said the
event place.
Public interest in it is huge. Even as big a place as they have, they still end up a little bit messing with traffic, and they're trying to fix that and address the need.
Yeah, so it's really proactively trying to help people. Oh, another really cool program. So when dogs come into the shelter as a stray, they are placed on a 72-hour hold. That's just North Carolina law. Every municipality just about has a required stray hold, and so there's a 72 hours. Most shelters will hold those dogs in kind of in a back stray kennel area where they don't allow the public to come in, but not Charlotte Mecklenburg. So all animals that come in are vaccinated on intake, and then they're placed in this stray hold area, and people can come through and see them. And if they see a dog and they're like, oh, I love that dog, I want that dog, they can apply and be approved to pre-adopt that dog. And then the dog is labeled pre-adopted, and what that means is when the stray hold is up, if no one has claimed that dog, that person has the first right of refusal to adopt that dog. So it's super cool. We were walking through their stray hold, and like so many of them said pre-adopted, and it just restricts how much time the dog has to be in the shelter.
Yeah, it's really smart. It really does speed things up, and I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I want to talk about what they do for their fosters, because I have fostered for multiple organizations and also for a shelter. and continue to. And they do some super smart things for their fosters. They kept telling me things about their foster program, and I was like, I wish that my shelter did that. I wish that my rescue did that. For instance, like if you need anything, like more food, supplies, whatever, there's a whole closet, which is actually like a room, and an enormous bin, like a feed bin in a barn, of food and supplies for fosters, and they can just walk in at any time and take what they need. They don't have to make an appointment, they don't have to request it, they don't have to buy it themselves and get reimbursed. There's none of that. They just come and get what they need. I love that.
Yeah.
I also love that they have a vet tech dedicated to taking care of their foster animals, because they have hundreds of animals in foster care. They all need updated vaccines. They might need heartworm preventative or flea tick preventative. They might have some kind of ongoing issue where they need care. They can also just come into the shelter at any point, and there's a vet tech dedicated just to taking care of foster animals, and they have their own little entrance and everything, and that's awesome, because for me, when I have to go to the shelter to get something for one of my foster animals, I have to wait in the lobby like everybody else. And it takes time, and it makes me not want to do it. It makes me think, I don't have time. And so sometimes I'll just go buy it, which is fine. It's what it is. But I know a lot of people wouldn't be in that situation. So it's really nice that they have dedicated so many resources to supporting their fosters. In fact, I think they said they had 3 foster coordinators.
Wow.
So they're supporting their foster people. They also, so that, sometimes when you're fostering an animal, especially for a shelter, you feel like you've kind of been forgotten, you and this dog, and you have this dog at your house, and you're like, how's it ever going to leave? Especially when there's hundreds of dogs on the website. Why is anybody going to pick your dog? Because they have to do it based on a picture, because it's not physically at the building. So they have, they had a name for it. I can't remember what it's called, but foster showcases, like twice a week, where they have events at like breweries or wherever, stores, local businesses, where they bring out a volunteer lead. It's volunteer led. They train their volunteers to do it because their staff doesn't have time for all of that. And they lead an event, and the fosters show up with their dogs. So they have plenty of opportunities to get their dogs out in front of the public eye, and that is really key. So, and I would bet, they didn't say this, but I would bet, but it's also a great experience for the fosters themselves to be able to connect with the shelter, connect with other fosters, build that community. So many smart things they're doing for fosters, and we talked a little bit more about it. I can't remember all the other things we said, but fostering to me is the future of shelters. It's the best way for animals. So Charlotte Mecklenburg is definitely leading the way there with their foster program.
Yeah, they've got tons of great ideas. They're definitely worth checking it out.